All right, part 8. Last part of this decently long unit. Neurological and psychiatric disorders and how they affect sleep. Of all the neurologic disorders, dementia is the most common. Dementia is the decline in mental abilities. It affects memory, recall ability to perform tasks, and higher level thought. Dementia patients, however, are not aware of their status. Dementia does not affect their consciousness. Not all dementia patients have Alzheimer's, but 60 to 80% of Alzheimer's patients have dementia. Alzheimer's can be diagnosed, but cannot be totally confirmed until the patient has died. It takes an autopsy to perform to see tau proteins, or Lewy bodies, which are like little insets of brain damage. And that's why we don't have more definitive numbers than 60 to 80%. Not everybody needs or wants an autopsy, especially for the elderly. These are also seen in chronic traumatic encephalitis, CTE patients who have had repeated concussions and essentially gives them Alzheimer's. Brett Favre, the old quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, just came out the other day and said that he has Parkinson's disease, and that was, it could be a natural thing that he was predisposed to, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was caused by all the concussions that he had playing football. There are small differences between Alzheimer's disease and dementia with Lewy bodies. Alzheimer's disease shows memory loss earlier. Visual hallucinations are seen earlier in dementia with Lewy bodies. When it comes to sleep, REM behavior sleep disorder is quite common with Lewy body dementia, but it is very rare with Alzheimer's patients. Today, mental health has become a mainstream medical issue. That's difficult because the brain is the final frontier of medicine. It's what we don't really know anything about. When we talk about things like major depressive disorder or depression and bipolar disorders, those are disorders that can affect our attitude, behavior, thoughts, and motivations. Those things are very subjective from the patient, and there are no objective measures that you can perform on the brain to confirm a diagnosis. You can't separate the mind from the brain, but we can't find where the mind or the consciousness lives in the brain. We've done research on which areas of the brain are affected when someone is depressed with functional MRI, but what do we do with that information? It's just tissues and fluids that conduct electricity in ways we don't understand. We're getting closer, though, with things like the company Neurolink, which has actually invented a device that allowed paraplegic patients to control things just with his brain after training. He focuses on the intent of movement to make that stuff work. Depression disorders and bipolarism is less understood than originally thought. Antidepressants work, but we don't know why. We used to think that it was due to a chemical imbalance in the brain, but that has recently been shown that in studies that there's been no evidence to support that. Diagnosis of major depressive disorder requires a minimum duration of 2 weeks of symptoms, which include feeling blue or down, little interest in usually interesting activities, unusual weight loss or gain, and difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much. Virtually all depression diagnoses are connected with insomnia. Sleep studies may show reduced non-REM 3, also known as slow-wave sleep or delta sleep, and reduced REM. Bipolarism patients experience periods of very high highs and very low lows, euphoria or mania versus depression. Sleep can be affected depending on which end of the spectrum the patient is on. During mania, you can get decreased total sleep time, increased WASO, wake after sleep time, onset, short REM latency, and increased REM. During depression, on the other hand, you can have decreased REM and increased total sleep time. The medications that treat depressive disorders may also have a sedating or stimulating effect, which can change the sleep architecture. Seasonal affective disorder, appropriately abbreviated SAD, is a period of major depression that occurs during winter months and disappears during spring, which makes it logical to think that it's linked to the sun, especially to know that symptoms improve with bright light therapy, commonly in the morning. During seasonal affective disorder, it is common to see an increased appetite and a greater need of sleep. SAD can also be treated with antidepressants, which are notorious REM suppressants. The most REM-suppressing antidepressants are tricyclic antidepressants like amitriptyline or doxepin or nortriptyline. SSRI antidepressants can be more REM activating. I think it's normal for everyone to be anxious over things, but when anxiety becomes detrimental to living a normal life, that it becomes a real problem. There are 5 big subsets of anxiety to be aware of. Generalized anxiety disorder is just when a person is in a fit all the time over nothing in particular. It may come from just a feeling of overwhelming stress. A panic disorder is when a person suddenly becomes incredibly overwhelmed with stress and just shuts down. It can happen for a good reason or for no reason at all. Panic disorder is when a person can cause a person to become vasoconstricted, meaning their blood vessels are narrowing and tightening up, and that can go in cold hands and can upset their stomach, give them tachycardia, give them tunnel vision where they can't see anything except what's directly in front of them. Phobias are intense and irrational fears that a patient associates with danger when those objects are not particularly dangerous. Maybe you've seen the Maury show when they did the phobia special, and he does the infamous "bring out the pickles," and the lady runs freaking out. When it comes to things like spiders, most people avoid them because they associate them with venom or poison. But really, the only spiders native to North Carolina that are dangerous to humans are black widows and brown recluses. The rest may be toxic, but their fangs are too small to get a bite. But some people are just absolutely terrified of them. They have an extreme physical reaction where they do something like jump up and run out of the room. My mom has a phobia of mice. She would see a mouse on TV and gasp and freak out and have a fit. She says it's because mice carry diseases, but there are diseases everywhere, and the chance of her ever contracting a disease because she was in contact with a mouse is virtually zero at this point. Obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, is not the OCD we joke about having when I say I have to keep my car clean because it's my OCD. It would be your OCD if you believed you would die if you didn't keep your car clean. Obsessions are thoughts that are constant and disturbing and upsetting. These obsessions can cause a person to act upon their feelings and to perform repetitive behaviors, which we would call compulsions. These compulsions could be washing your hands over and over, washing your clothes over and over, turning the lights off 3 times in a row when leaving. There's also a condition called pure O, where the person just experiences obsessive thoughts but does not act upon them. Post-traumatic stress disorder has a spectrum of traumas and symptoms that may follow. PTSD can come from a multitude of things, from witnessing a death or an injury, or being in a car accident, being assaulted, going to war, or any time you truly fear for your life. These events have severe consequences on the brain. It can cause high anxiety, irritability, inability to concentrate, jumpiness, intense startle reactions, and hypervigilance. It makes sense if these patients can't sleep from their anxiety, that their symptoms become worse from not sleeping. But if you truly believe the Swedish torture fish are coming in the night to harvest your kidneys, would you be able to sleep at night? That's supposed to be half funny and half serious. If you're an anxious or paranoid person, the last thing you probably want is someone putting wires all over you and watching you try to sleep at night. All this can make anxiety worse and can make a patient not sleep or just want to leave. If you take care in being friendly with the patient and talking to them and getting their mind off things, that can be a big help. Ask about things they're interested in or try to relate them the best you can. Be transparent with the patient. Show them the wires and the head box, and if they seem interested, explain how everything works. There aren't any risks of electrical jolts through the through the wires. We can't see what you're dreaming. We can't really see much. It's just if you're asleep or not. Put yourself in the patient's shoes. If you had no idea what was about to happen with all this stuff, what could be said to make you feel better? What can you say to make someone feel better? Despite being advertised as a harmless substance to be enjoyed liberally on TV, alcohol abuse is a disease, alcoholism. Alcohol, specifically ethanol, is the second most psychoactive substance used in the world, behind caffeine. When used together, you get Four Loko and a bad time. Not only are the short-term effects troublesome, like stumbling, you can't see straight, you're less inhibited to say something unflattering to another person as well. But long-term, the liver is destroyed and could even lead to diabetes, depend on the carbohydrate content of the beer, if it's beer that you're drinking. Alcoholics are unable to cope when they are sober. It can even be serious enough that withdrawal can provoke seizures. It can be very dangerous to detox from alcohol. When falling asleep after consuming alcohol, the first portion of the night shows more non-REM 3 delta sleep, or slow wave sleep, and REM is pushed later into the night. The latter half of sleep shows more awakenings and resultant increased non-REM 1. REM rebound occurs from being interrupted by slow wave sleep earlier. This is abnormal sleep architecture and can have detrimental effects on sleep and from sleep inconsolidation, meaning it's all broken up. That's it. Unit 2 presentations are done. Please submit your answers after answering them on this presentation, and work hard for your exam. And that's it for now. See you in Unit 3.